Oh,
We're back and picking up with Terrence Howard and the Joe Rogan podcast, which we both,
my first Joe Rogan podcast.
I was thinking about that. Was it really?
Yeah, I've never watched him before.
Did you watch it on
I,
YouTube?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I realized that was available halfway through listening to it on Spotify without the visuals. Yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. How far did you make it?
I think I got an hour.
There was a lot in an hour. Right out the gates, it would seem like they had a lot to talk about, or that Terrence Howard had a lot to talk about.
Yeah, the homeboy didn't even talk. So, have even experienced Joe Rogan? I don't think so. I mean, he didn't say a fucking word.
He's an expert interviewer, man. At this point, he just perfect finesse. He knows when to just back off.
Well, I mean, it's not much of an interview if the other person doesn't even speak. You know,
Yeah, he didn't set him up for anything he had to say. Terrence came out the gates wanting
it
to
was
say
it
everything.
was a monologue, and it probably went on for another 2 hours. It looked like a 3 hour video, but yeah, I don't know. Did you make it through the entire thing?
Right before you got on, I had I don't know, 20 minutes left or so, 30 minutes left.
Oh well, yeah, yeah.
Um, just to recap, seemed like that particular Joe Rogan podcast got a lot of buzz, and people had mentioned to me at least, and that they wondered what I thought about that podcast. But that's it. That people were asking all of their like every community that maybe has a go-to like flat earther or some guy that they're one off their pseudoscience friend that they still maybe communicate with. I feel like every one of those guys was asked about this Joe Rogan podcast. Like, hey, what do you think about it? Um,
Yeah, yeah. Like, I find it kind of funny that that got that much traction. Really too. Like,
well, I see why. I see why. I mean,
yeah,
the timing of it and yeah, the timing of it is something you could talk about. I think it came out within the last few months, and what we're 2024 here. Uh, the theme of it is you got this Hollywood actor, Terrence Howard. He's maybe for some people the first time revealing he's like a science oddity.
you gotta love it, man. You gotta love it. I love it. Oh shit. It's too, I mean, it's so good. Okay. All right.
Well, yeah, he
Go for side.
to the layman, the guy that's not out to see through his what he had to say. He seems like he's very knowledgeable about a great deal of things, science related, and
Yes.
got theories, and he's like got the attitude. His take and theories are a little bit better than everything else that's out there. They're more refined, and
And he's got his patents to prove it.
yeah, he's got a way of proving why he's right. And at the end of it, he's basically saying, I want to reinvent a whole bunch of things that you could say are like the fundamentals of physics, science, reality. I don't know the terms, but
Yeah.
yeah, and
Well, I'll tell you, listening to him, who sprang to mind is Miles Mathis,
mhm.
right? Have you looked at any of his work, on mathematics and physics and stuff?
Nothing more than like Wikipedia searching him. I don't really know him.
Oh man, you're
Oh,
missing out. I mean, oh well, he's like a huge figure in the conspiracy, world, right?
keep
He's like
going,
a
keep
he's
going.
like an OG, he's like it's a big name. Like
Carl talks about him from the group chat. Like I don't know. I know of him.
yeah, there was somebody in there that knew him. Maybe it was Carl. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was. He spoke about him before, for sure.
Well, here's another example of except he's Miles Mathis is all into the conspiracy stuff as well, you know, you know, not only dismantling, the claims of physics, but he also is, is an artist, like a kind of fine art oil painter, you know, doing like realism, kind of, like John Singer Sargent or something like that kind of paintings.
Okay, that's
He's a
coming back to me.
he's a very interesting individual in the world of the, more so than old Terrence, I think, but I'm just talking about like, clearly like this Terrence guy, his ideas come from somewhere. Early on he kind of mentioned, a couple of people from the 19th and early 20th century,
Walter Russell. It's worth saying that because he mentions him so much.
right,
It's I want to bring it up some more, but Walter Russell, especially. Mhm.
right, exactly, yeah. So anyway,
Oh well, yeah, the Walter Russell. Well, okay, so he's using information that's already out there, as you're suggesting. Comes across very much like his unique stuff. He's on that podcast. He's talking about these experiences as a child. Like he everything he understands comes from himself within his own experimentation and discovery, and he's been trying to tell people about it his whole life, and no one's been listening. Is kind of the story, and like now he's got it all systematically ready to in books and in his computer programs to show you everything he knows how to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. And he's on the Joe Rogan podcast to present
well,
it.
look, I'll tell you who else he reminded me of is that Archaics guy,
Uh-huh.
right? Who just came out of nowhere, some ex-con, right? Like in prison for like 20 years or what, 15 years, I can't remember, for rape and like all these like fucked up shit.
Yeah.
And he just comes out of nowhere, and he, self-educated in prison, no less, and he's unraveled the secrets of the universe as well. It's
And
amazing. These guys,
and
like,
he's the
huh.
most accurate with the history. Art, yeah, the just gonna point out RKX is a guy in our community, and
I,
arguably.
I, I don't claim that motherfucker.
Well, I'm just trying to say you even knowing of him is a statement because it's apples and oranges with the Terrence Howard, Joe Rogan awareness
That's
level.
that's I suppose that's maybe true to a degree. I I think a lot of the people in our so-called community are Joe Rogan listeners. I would bet you.
No, yeah,
And Alex Jones and Alex, I mean, they might, a lot of people like they might seem hip to the shit, but they're still listening to Alex Jones. you know, they're still following the Trump, whatever
sure.
Trumpy is.
Yeah, oh yeah, and that's only gonna pick right back up.
Anyway, so, I don't know. It's kind of one foot in and one foot out. I think, with a lot of people.
Yeah, everyone's sifting through a lot of murky waters, trying to make sense of it. I want to get back to, you brought up RKX. You're saying there's a guy that comes out of the woodwork and says, I figured out and want to reinvent. I want to give him history. He's saying I understand history better than everyone, and I've done all the research, and I can tell you exactly what's going on in history. And he takes it so far back. Yeah, he's explaining like an origin story, a reality different than what we've been given. Okay, Terrence Howard, we're saying it's coming out of the woodwork, and we're talking science more, and he's got reasons to reinvent scientific systems as we know it. I want to rant. My Uncle Tom is a Notre Dame graduate from, back in the day. I don't know, biology degree or chemistry maybe is Uncle Tom's chemistry, but very scientific minded man, and you know, there's a lot to be said about my Uncle Tom and me and some of our different ideas in the course of our relationship because of it. But uh the one point is that I'm trying to say, he said about, I don't know, he sent me something a month ago and he was trying to tell me, okay, it's like he's come a long way, my Uncle Tom. So he was very much not happy that I was a proponent of flat earth and different conspiracy theories and stuff. And
That's funny.
he was a liberal minded guy. I wish
Of course.
she'd be quiet. Um,
Goes without saying.
yeah, and so he we've been trying to find the love again, is a way to say it. And you do that by
Build a bridge.
build a bridge. You focus on, what you do, guys, the common ground. And he's trying in his way, and he's to share that he's trying to do that. Is he coming very far really in the grand scheme of things to where I'm at with some of my ideas? No, he's still pretty far over there, but at least the conversation's better than it ever, or it's been in a few years now, since COVID at least. And the whole point is he made this comment like the James Webb telescope is changing the game from their perspectives in his science community. And
Of course it is. Yes, no doubt.
you know, in all ways, that is what's the claim. There's someone reinventing the AI is changing the game in this or that. The cryptocurrency is changing the game over there. And that directly corresponds with some ideas with astrology and the new age, and how all encompassing that idea is. Us little laymen can't comprehend it, that entirely new systems will be coming in and changing the way it is to be and think as a human. And it's kind of outside of our pay grade or our ability to like grasp it, and outside these lifetimes, because one day in a couple generations they will be
That's
living
right.
in such a way that it's just we wouldn't be able to fathom it from our perspective here. And the ground.
Yes, yes. I mean, and I mean, don't you already feel, pity for these unfortunate future generations to have a robot implanted in your ass? No, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I am no, I'm not in pity of how the world works. I accept how the world works, and there's always a downside, and there's
I mean, people thought that, like, or people think, CDs and VHS tapes were bad enough, and then, like, the floppy disks on the computer, stuff like that. Like, oh, we've reached the end. But no, but it could have stopped there and that would have been fine. But on it goes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I try not to dwell too much on that game of if only. If,
Well, I think you make a good point, that, unless your ass gets reincarnated again or something like that, I mean, you're not gonna, we're not gonna live too much longer. So, we're really probably not going to see anything but the very, very edge of all that shit. So, but if you get reincarnated, you're going to be born into, the transhumanist nightmare. you know, that's what you'll be born into, and you probably won't have a mommy. You'll probably be, in a fish tank or something.
I got my ideas, and it's
So,
just
so it'll be like life as a goldfish, I suppose.
there's always like the future dystopian way of like you're making jokes at, and then there's always the resistors that didn't go with it, so they turn into like the aboriginals or like the primitive types that aren't doing what the main flock is, and so I have my ideas of how you don't have to go down that pathway. It's going to still be a choice, and right now it is important because you can set up your family lineage to be smarter than the masses and not exactly just blindly go down that pathway. Think about like how many generations. So like when we talk about the edge, like how and within our lifetimes we're going to see so much. We're going to see like amazing technological advances over and over and over again. That no, I mean when they come out with whatever what they're going to come out with, to a degree, it's going to be more and more like Back to the Future or whatever. And all right, the point is, but the mindsets of us will still be with the old, what we remembered. But when we die off, it's like how many generations does it take before it's forgotten, stuff like that?
Well,
And,
supposedly it's not very many. It's like two.
right. Yeah, exactly. It's only yeah, it's
Yeah.
only
So so the history can be rewritten over and over again pretty rapidly,
mhm. And
obviously. But what I hope to live to see in my lifetime, which is it's got to be coming pretty soon, if I'm going to live to see it, is the robot girlfriend. That's what I want. I want a girlfriend who is a robot
uh you
above all things.
you and a bunch of other Asian men are ready and waiting.
I I love the Asians.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, robot girlfriend. No, I'll take the real thing.
Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah,
That's my question.
because I'm been alone.
You're a sucker for punishment. That's why.
I guess that too. Not exactly what. Yeah, that's like you saying. The punishment, the pain is like the reality of the situation, and I'm.
Well, maybe the next one will be the last nail in the coffin for you. Just saying. It's got to happen at some point.
No, I'm pretty stubborn about some things.
Of course, but you've got you've got plenty of time, you know, and then you can look back on it all. Uh,
Well, hey, let's go back to Terrence Howard because I just saw the word curve.
Terrence Howard, yes.
No curves on my notes. We're talking about women, and so Terrence Howard, for the people that ask me, what do you think? It's like he's an actor, and actors are very talented and good at what they do. And what I saw is all of the the normal tactics to like make someone come across very smart and like they know what they're talking about, and people can, if they don't scrutinize it too much, easily accept it. And so it's like how they always do things with like British accents for Americans, or like, there's little subtle things make it so people are like, whoa, this guy's
Do you remember when Madonna started having a British accent?
no, well,
It's too bad. You missed a great moment in history. You know,
well,
this was a historical moment when Madonna was starting to do like a British accent because she was married to a British guy or whatever.
all right. I mean, that was a tangent from where I was going, but now that you did it, I'll say I'm not a hater of that. I don't judge that because in my own life, I've partaken in changing my lingo to fit in with the crowd. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I've done it twice now. I'm kind of doing it a little bit here in Kentucky lately, being here for my fourth year. And then I did it when I was in Ireland for 6 months. I started talking like the Northern Irish to like fit in better. It just became a thing. Like you started using their words. If you were going to use their words, you might as well say it like with their connotation.
Right. So like you started calling everybody a cunt.
I mean, I'm always Mr. Nice Guy, so I wasn't saying that, but I was saying
You cunt.
enough. Well, I'm not going to do it here on camera,
You bloody.
but
uh,
yeah, there was a whole lot. I
well, they have a lot of good words, you know. I mean, not a lot, but a few.
crack. Do you know the crack? How that works? CRAIC. That's what was coming to mind the most when you were trying to like pull one out of me. Everything is a crack. Um, it's like it's like the most ambiguous word you could think of, and it's a good time. You're trying to find it. You're always trying to find the crack, and yeah, that word, was just you use it quite often. It's a thing.
Are you talking about like making puns or something?
I'm just trying to say you were saying bloody and cunt. Like really, that's I don't know. My guys weren't saying bloody too much, but they were calling each other cunt for sure.
Well, uh,
But
yeah, with the bloody, that's just kind of my impression of like British people from watching,
right,
all these damned British movies and everything else.
my Irish pride.
I've never been there, and I've never really known, anybody from there. So
I know because I'm talking
everything
about
I
Ireland. My
everything I
Irish
know,
pride that doesn't exist is offended.
you know, everything I know about the world, is from movies. Let's face it.
You gotta travel more.
What's that?
You gotta get get out more.
Well, you go outside and you start running into people and stuff, and then you realize that the movies weren't kidding. So there's really no reason to leave the house.
Oh, oy vey.
I watched the Chainsaw Massacre, and then I go talk to the neighbors, and I'm like, you know,
It ain't that
it's like being chased by Leatherface.
bad. He was corny.
That's a good movie, man. Like, Rat Paul's the greatest killer of them all. You
Oh,
know? Oh, it's the best line, man. I love that movie.
that's
Anyway,
yeah, I've seen it, but I can't remember it exactly.
oh, you got to see it again, man. Like, it's very well done. As as movies go, it's pretty well done.
They redid it quite a few times.
Oh well, I wouldn't I wouldn't bother with any of that. Like it's like watching remakes of like the Night of the Living Dead or something. Like there's no reason you can't improve on the original, you know, the original Chainsaw Massacre, the original Night of the Living Dead, stuff like that. Like, some of the sequels were good, George Romeo, I think it was like Dawn of the Dead. That was a great one, There's
Oh,
this scene in the movie, right? Everybody has been turned into a zombie, all the normies or whatever, and stuff like that. And like they're zombies. And like, where does a zombie want to go? Or where does somebody want to go once they've been zombified? The mall. So they're all going to the mall at the end.
that's that's good.
That's what, it's like the place they feel most at home at, you right? That they remember as zombies, right? Oh, they're like the mall. Huh? I thought it was a perfect comment. And this movie is from like the early 70s or something.
That is pretty good insight.
I like that shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, even kind of like, B horror movies and stuff, like I don't know. I think those people, those filmmakers or whatever, had more insight, into things than Terrence Howard or, it's that sort. I mean, he seems to know a lot.
Well, let's take a step back. Terrence Howard is on the Joe Rogan podcast, which I was mentioning. It was for a long time touted. I don't know if it still is the most listened to podcast ever. And
Oh, it probably is.
so the point is, well, this is what, like, if any friends were to listen to this, like, you and I almost unconsciously apply these rules to what we listen to, that they're not our friends, my friends. And so, like, right out the gates, we had our red flags going into a Joe Rogan podcast. And I mean, essentially what you're saying, you're like, the move from mainstream media and mainstream anything into these like more fringe communities that are supposed to be better for you. They care about you more. The information's pure.
Right. They're
Filtered.
telling you the truth.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's a orchestrated kind of thing from our information overlords, the people that they were in charge of all the information when you look at how the media disseminates it and the controlling powers, like that they were in control, and now they are changing how that structure works, and they're doing it by their choice. A lot of times people feel like this podcast truther movement is, us.
Right.
We did it, we started it, but it was kind of, we were shown how to do this. And so, long story short, when you're
Yeah.
listening to Joe Rogan, you are just listening to the new ages media, and you have to understand that
Yep.
information is serves a purpose. It has an agenda. It's already been pre-approved,
That's right.
and so I was listening to a little bit of what Terrence Howard was saying about his patents and his science, but I was hearing these buzzwords between the two of them that were hitting all kinds of topics that the truther community has been talking about for years now. And I made a list of them, but
Yeah.
combined with Terrence Howard's like wizardry, he was laying in these little ideas that are becoming more and more popular. Like, simple thing, like 20 minutes in, he was talking about his parasite cleanse. Like, he just shifted from the science to, like, he had to take his little droplets from a
That's
parasite
right. He
cleanse.
probably owns stock in some sort of parasite cleanse company. I'm kidding. Anyway, but he
Oh,
probably does. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. And
But no, right, the buzzwords like the fasting, the cleanse, the metal detox, all these things that
even
it's like you see it 24/7.
he even despite him very much talking about like I think like a heliocentric uh wait, heliocentric is what they keep.
That's the globies.
Yeah, he was, even though he was adhering to heliocentric to a large degree, he did bring up ideas that like we have brought up where he was anti-gravity. He brought up flat earth. He mentioned flat earth to like describe where some original thoughts came from. And so I guess the big, intermittent fasting, oh, the anti-government kind of conversation was always at hand, where at times he was trying to present things and the computer wasn't working, and he was trying to say like, the government's always doing that, like messing with his phone and making his computer software not work, and they don't want the information to come out. And so that's an idea that's, again, in the truth of community all day long, people believe they're specifically being picked on because they know the truth and they're trying to share it and the government doesn't want it. And so these
That's
are
right.
the themes. Like I'm at this point where it's like, I haven't really talked about it or made very many posts about it. I did make one little post about it on Instagram, but yeah, I just see that all the information that I was about more passionately 4 or 5 years ago is actually the information they want us to all to be about and talking about. And so we were just kind of like hipsters to the information. We were just ahead of the curve. And, the term gatekeeping, a gatekeeper, gets a lot of different connotation, I think. But the thing I like about it is timing. Gatekeeping is about timing. It's originally a farming term, you gotta keep the studs away from the females, until you want them to hook up. And that's like, or you don't want the goats or the sheep to eat all that pasture yet, so you're keeping them over here. And then when the time is ready, you open the gate. And so it seems to be like this was a big podcast, and like it was, the timing was right. The audience is so big for Joe Rogan that Terrence Howard was going to come in with all these big ideas, and the people that listened to Rogan were, they're primed for it. Maybe they wouldn't have been 2 3 years ago, but there's enough.
Yeah, no,
I mean, they were talking about the jab. They were talking about CERN, what CERN's doing. That's a big buzz thing in the truther community.
yeah. Fucking CERN. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
mean, do you know? I mean, I think there's like something like 30,000 of these CERNs around the world.
colliders, particle colliders.
Yeah. It's like it's hardly the only one. you know, Apparently there's like tens of thousands.
That's a lot. I want to.
Yeah.
That. No, I didn't. Where'd you hear that?
I can't remember.
It's the truth. Anyone, it's
I mean, I did look it up. Like, you can, just do a web search and
okay.
tons of these fucking things come up. You put in Hadron, Hadron Collider, right? CERN is not the first one in the list. It's like, you know,
I believe that. Because I believe that CERN is part of.
why my question is like, why do they only point to CERN?